let's talk software. Are you an orthodontist or maybe a pediatric dentist thinking of upgrading your patient management system? Or maybe you're a startup choosing it for the very first time. Or do you just want to get a handle on some of your office data to improve your efficiency of conversion? If so, do you even know what questions you need to ask to vet out your vendors? If it sounds like you, stay tuned. Our Golden Age of Orthodontics podcast sponsors make it possible for us to bring you new episodes. Dental monitoring is making orthodontic treatment smarter. DM Insights provides clear analytics on clinical operations and practice workflow. You can measure and enhance the effectiveness of your protocols, all while creating a new standard in patient experience and practice efficiency. Lightforce Orthodontics is revolutionizing orthodontic care with cutting-edge custom bracket technology that offers personalized digital treatment plans that are fast, precise, and uniquely tailored to your patient's needs. Take advantage of the new standard of care with 3D printed, fully customized brackets combined with indirect bonding and digital planning. You can learn a lot more and take advantage of some special offers by visiting our partner page at pplpractice.com.
The future of orthodontics is evolving and changing every day. But although the way to achieve practice growth has changed, there's never been a better time to be an orthodontist. Let's get into the minds of industry leaders, forward-thinking orthodontists, and technology insiders to learn how they see the future of the orthodontic specialty. How will digital orthodontics, artificial intelligence, clear aligner therapy, remote monitoring, in-house printing, and other innovations change the way you practice? Join your hosts, Dr. Leon Klempner and Amy Epstein, each month as they bring you insights, tips, and guest interviews focused on helping you capitalize on the opportunities for practice growth. And now, welcome to the Golden Age of Orthodontics with the co-founders of People and Practice, Dr. Leon Klempner and Amy Epstein.
Welcome to the Golden Age of Orthodontics. I'm Leon Klempner, retired, proud board-certified orthodontist, director of orthodontics at Mount Sinai Hospital here in New York, part-time faculty at Harvard, and the CEO of People and Practice. In my spare time, I do rock climbing and run marathons. No, those last two things are not true. If you
couldn't tell by me, he's shaking my head. No, don't believe him. He doesn't do any of those things.
Those two things are lies. But I am father of 3 daughters and grandfather to 4. And I'm joined today by my oldest daughter, Amy. So welcome, Amy Epstein, my partner.
Thank you. You are a tough act to follow every time we do this podcast, but especially now that you rock climb and run marathons, because I can't keep up with that. Yes, I'm Amy Epstein. I partnered with my dad about 15 years ago after a career in public relations and marketing for multinational brands to bring some of those tried and true tenets of good marketing to the business of orthodontics. And so here we are on this podcast, and the goal of this show is really to bring thought leaders and experts in their fields to you so that you can get the most up-to-date information and insightful information about how to make decisions to best run your orthodontic practices. So on that note, today we are thrilled to have April Lowry on our show. April is the director of Aura and Dental Product Management at PracticeTek, and they deliver software and service solutions that help practices to provide a better patient experience, attract new patients, and deliver healthcare more easily. You are probably familiar with some of the brands under the PracticeTek umbrella, including Gauge, Tops, Ortho Minds, among others. For the past 2 years, April has been leading the development and launch of PracticeTek's new all-in-one dental platform called Aura. And prior to PracticeTek, April was co-founder and chief operating officer at Total Software Development Group, leading the development of a new platform for a leading DSO. She has a long history of leadership and entrepreneurship. She helped launch a consulting practice in the healthcare industry and even ran a global HR consulting and executive search company. So we are thrilled to have April today on our show as a technology subject matter expert. Welcome, April. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Amy, and Dr. Leanne for that kind introduction and welcoming to your podcast. I look forward to our discussion today.
Likewise. So you're a little bit different than some of the guests that we typically have. You are a technology expert. This is of high interest to us. We, as individuals, are sort of like just interested in technology in general. And so coupling that with the business of orthodontics, we're very excited to talk to you. So let's start out a little bit by just talking about practice management. We just were at the AAO and walking the show floor. There's a ton of technology out there that helps with practice management, patient engagement. We are, as consultants to orthodontists, always asked our perspective on how to make the best choices when switching orthodontic technology or acquiring some new technology for the first time. Can you tell us a little bit about the best overarching approach to evaluating software for an ortho practice?
Yes, that's a great question, Amy, and one that we face a lot when we're talking to some of the practices that we work with. And I think you have to go back to the basics when you're looking at adding any new technology to your practice, and that is identifying what need does the platform or product solve, and then how is it going to improve either the life of your office team members and staff or the life of your patients, and hopefully both. And I tend to want to quantify those by saying, how is it going to either help you make more money as a practice or help you save more money as a practice? Because it creates efficiencies, it replaces items that a staff might be doing in an automation format. Or it provides better patient engagement, better, marketing leads, the ability to close more cases. So what is the need that product is going to fill in your practice, and understand in the beginning what it is you're looking for by identifying that. And then I think that helps guide that product search, because you can fine tune it, you know exactly what you're looking for. And then from there, you can create sort of your nice to haves versus your must have list. In whatever technology product you're looking for, so that you have a good understanding of what your sort of minimal acceptable list of requirements are for that product, whether it's a practice management system, a document management system, a patient engagement, a CRM. There's multiple things that you could be looking at for your practice to thrive, but understanding how you want that product to improve your overall business and the lives of your staff and patients, I think is the number one question you need to ask yourself before you even start looking at what all is available. And, there's a good chance that the technology that's in your pocket or your purse is probably better than the technology you're using to run your business today. So you need to also ask yourself the question of, coming into the modern times in terms of, are you looking at the right kind of tech stack? Are you looking at a cloud-based platform versus an on-premise? And what is the security implications of either of those choices? So we talk all the time about folks having their smartphones and things of that nature that they operate from. But if you're going to run your potential multi-million-dollar practice from a technology system, is it as comparable or as good as the one that you're, posting pictures to Facebook on?
Yeah. And I'm sure there are a lot of other considerations too, because, as opposed to whatever's in your pocket, we have to deal with HIPAA. And, it might seem like it's really easy to use that. Why can't we use this? Because I use this at home but there are other considerations that we have to figure out. So anyway, thanks for that. Appreciate it.
So, over the years, I practiced for 38 years, and I've gone through a variety of different softwares, obviously, and I'm like an early adopter. So I'm all over it. When something comes out, I'm interested in using it. And the criteria for me was always, is it going to benefit the patient? If it was something that was going to cost a lot of money, the criteria was, it looks like fun, and I'd really like to have this piece of technology, because I always go for the shiny stuff, big, Mac fanboy or whatever. So I'm always jumping on stuff that comes out. But, it's always a question of whether it helps the patient or not. But the other thing is that I know that I've learned that one piece of software doesn't do everything, and that there's a lot of different softwares out there, and each has different usage. And one question I always had when making a decision about software is, does it play nicely with my software? I mean, is it, the term interoperability is something I heard at the AAO. I'm assuming that means like APIs, or does it play nicely in the sandbox with my other software? So can you just comment a little bit about what is this term interoperability? Is it what I just described? Or for that matter, why should it be important to orthodontists?
Yeah, and it is a little bit like what you just described. Interoperability itself is sort of the ability for different systems, different applications to connect, to share data bidirectionally, which means back and forth, right? A lot of the connections we do today are one way. When you do an integration with a third-party platform into your practice management system, for example. But the concept and goal of interoperability is that we want to get this to be bidirectional. We want to make data transfer easy between platforms and systems. And that also benefits, not just the practice, but also the patient. So if you think about real-world applications of that, is you have one of your, orthodontic patients, they're in an accident over the weekend. Is your system going to allow you easy access to get into that patient's chart from a remote location and then transfer those records possibly to an emergency room or hospital where the doctor on call might need them? Could be one application or real world example of how interoperability plays out and why it's important. In 2022, the AAO came out and said, look, we have a position on interoperability, and that going forward, we are encouraging our developers of orthodontic software and dental software to implement, kind of open, non-proprietary standards for data interoperability. And then to, take those to a place of being open and non-proprietary so that we can do this exchange of data. At this past AAO, I was part of a panel discussion that I think is recorded on their website, but it was specifically in regards to interoperability and what the AAO and the ADA is doing in their plans to embrace this and to encourage software developers and doctors to use it. One of the members of that panel was a gentleman who's with one of the top payers. And they are very interested in interoperability and the ease of being able to exchange data with the software platforms, the clearinghouses, and even taking it to the level of having the dental platforms and the clearinghouses integrate ICD-10 coding along with CDT codes for dental and orthodontic claims. The reason for this is that it would allow the possibility down the road for the payers to pay more for a complicated or complex case, maybe one that requires surgery to do correction. And as opposed to today where they're sort of stuck with this one size, one fee fits all cases because they don't have the ability from the technology platforms to get the data they need to determine if a case is, more complex than another. So that's one example of where the interoperability comes into play. We're seeing it take play with both the AAO and the ADA, and they are both starting to take stronger and stronger positions with this and being backed more even by the insurance companies.
So specifically, let's say, are there certain features that a practice should be looking for to be ready for this in their practice management system?
Well, your mention of the APIs is a good one. So if a platform does have existing APIs or enterprise APIs available, it makes connecting to those third parties and doing that two-way data exchange much easier. The other piece is always encourage practices to ask about the data. So do you have access to your data either through an analytics or reporting module that's built into the platform, or will they provide you with a regular data file, especially for larger organizations that have their own, BI or data warehousing tools? In our organization, we focus a lot on analytics, working with, leading products in the orthodontic space like Gauge, who's at the forefront of analytic software for the orthodontic industry. And then our new platform, Aura, that we're launching next week, also includes a built-in analytics and reporting module, because we want practices to always have access to their data, to understand it, and to be able to use it. And so I think the data aspect is one of the key questions for that. And then also, what other systems do they easily share information with, whether it's a clearinghouse already? Do they have a marketplace to connect to third parties, integrations for the systems that you might want to use? Do they have limited partners that you can only work with these 5 if you choose our base, practice management system? And otherwise, your practice could be doing a lot of duplicate data entry. You might have, challenges exchanging information with your referral networks. And you might have, issues that play into how you could easily get data into your letters to share back to your doctors. So there's some real world implications from the orthodontic and dental perspective of how this, movement towards interoperability impacts all of us in the space. And eventually down the road, we see it providing much better patient outcomes, because the ability to sort of access the data, the ability for that data to be available, you end up with improved care coordination. You end up with fewer errors, because we're not guessing about medical histories and, how things were before in emergency situations. Faster access to care. Hopefully there's fewer duplicate tests, like imaging, especially you're going to get, there's limits and things like that from the payers that we have to be aware of. And then, the whole idea behind this is to give that seamless exchange of data, but then also an improved patient experience. I would also encourage practices to find out, when patients do need their records, how easy does your system make it for me to go print a full copy of the patient's history or the patient medical record? How is your PHI and HIPAA compliance handled? We live in an age of, it seems, targeted cyber attacks in the dental and healthcare space. So we need to make sure that the systems that we're working with and choosing, not only are they sharing data, but are they doing it in a secure way that meets the standards set by the governing bodies, and that we can be confident that our patients' healthcare information is protected in the right way.
Mm-hmm. The point you're making about the patient experience is one I always like to sort of bring back up and explore a little bit further, because from our perspective as marketers, there's so many benefits you just described to the practice of having interoperability and having the technologies speak to one another, and efficiencies with the practice. The patient side of things is really where we look in and try to explore, because that's the thing we're elevating to the communities for the practices we work with. Is why is this practice different and better? And why are you going to have better outcomes or experience? Is it more convenient? Is it just a more streamlined process, faster treatment times? What is it that contributes to this practice being the one that should be your choice for yourself or your family? And so, you highlighted some of them, but maybe we could just talk a little bit about the specific benefits to patients that some of the interoperability affords when practices adopt this type of technology.
No, Amy, that's a great call out. And I think a couple of things that come to mind specifically that we've worked on with some of our PracticeTek practice management systems within TOPS and Aura specifically recently is a couple of things. So we want patients to have electronic forms. And those electronic forms should go directly to smartphones. They should be able to be completed on your smartphones. That data should write back to the practice management system so that the office team doesn't have to do double data entry. Patients should be able to make electronic payments, digital payments for your services, whether that's through their mobile phone or through a text or through a patient portal. Those payments should be secure, and they should auto post back to the practice management system. Patients should be able to schedule online. They need to be able to make online appointments. We live in an age, especially with the primary demographics of a lot of your practices that you work with. They are used to doing their entire lives on technology. So if we can afford them that same luxury, there's a good chance that patient will go to another practice where they can schedule online and where they can minimize some of the other pieces of the process for the financial piece, like, I've got 6 kids. So I want one statement for my kids. I want one appointment reminder when they all have an appointment, or 3 of them have an appointment the same day. I want to make family appointments. I don't need 7 emails and 7 calls and 7 text messages because we all have an appointment the same time period. So little things like that improve that overall patient experience, and where you can use that automation to play in is very key. We've also included something somewhat unique in the Aura platform, is that we wanted patients to have a good explanation of their benefits when things get adjusted by insurance companies. So we've included the actual line item piece per code of why it got adjusted by the insurance company, so that the office team can explain to the patients in an easy manner why something got paid or discounted than they were initially expecting on the estimate. They have the information in front of them. And we've also included benefits to the office for that. And I think that's something that you often lose track of in technology, is that you do want everything to be impacting that patient journey and making it as seamless as possible, making sure that the different systems that you're using for forms or that you're using for online scheduling. Two-way texting is another that we've built into our platform, so that you can easily communicate to the patient in the mode or the media that they're using every day. And those messages come directly into the platform. And combining all of that into one system is another way of that interoperability being effective, because then you have one call to make, you have one phone call, one support team, one trainer. You're not, having the whole, it's not our problem because it's a third-party system. So there's a lot of things like that make that whole patient journey easier, especially when something goes wrong, because it's easier for your team and it's a better experience for the patient to get it resolved more quickly if there is a challenge.
Yeah. You mentioned you have 6 children. That's amazing. I mean, and you do what you do. I am impressed and in awe. With only 2, I can, I try to put myself in the parent or the patient's shoes, and in many cases I am, right? I had first consult for my 9-year-old and an orthodontist pretty recently, so and even just at the very beginning of the patient journey, if you think about the way that we, and many practices still do require this sort of synchronous alignment with when the office is open. If you're requiring a phone call to make an appointment, for example, or to learn more, just to get more information, that means it has to be business hours. You have to be available on your phone to speak. You can't be doing something else. And let's be honest, when are we not doing more than one thing at a time to just get everything done that needs to get done? So the, democratizing the ability to make an appointment or learn more about the practice and many of the different benefits that you just highlighted to the patient, even just at the very beginning of the journey, allows them to get on board with one practice versus perhaps another. It could be the decision-making factor, I guess, is what I'm saying, between a practice that doesn't offer that sort of transparency and ease of communication.
No, you're absolutely right. And I tell some of the practices we work with that are struggling with that is that, oftentimes they need to work with marketing companies like yours, or possibly even, website development companies that are focused on SEO, like companies like GrowthPlug, where they will help you develop your website and put content on it and use SEO to optimize it so that you're showing up earlier in that patient journey. And so they can go read about you, they can look about you. And then, that's kind of your first step of just getting on the radar of a prospective new patient. And then from there, making it as easy as possible to schedule an appointment. So that's the thing you want to get them to do, to get them to say yes. So, are you requiring 20 pieces of data for them to schedule an appointment, or just the really 4 that you need? That's a question we push back a lot of times, during implementations and setup with practices, is saying, hey, what do you really just need to know? Is it just their first and last name, their email, their date of birth, and if they have insurance or not? Those are the 5 things that I think you need to make an appointment. Now, if you get other information because you have more time or the patient's willing, absolutely, get as much as you can. But you're going to lose a lot of patients if you start requiring more that early in the process before they're truly engaged with your practice and have a relationship. with you, because we all know orthodontic and dental is all about the relationship you have with your hygienist, the relationship you have with your orthodontist, the relationship you have with your dentist over time, because these relationships can last years. I had kids in braces for 12 years. And we literally followed our orthodontist to 2 different practices during that time. He treated the kids. My youngest is just turned 16 actually yesterday. And I've never seen people happier when he got out of braces 6 months ago. Like, it was finally 12 years of ongoing visits for, every 6 weeks. So as a consumer and a parent of that experience, you understand and appreciate how that engagement is important. But early on in that process, it's the marketing that matters. It's the content on your website that matters. It's, location is still important. And then how easy is it for me to take that first step? Like, if I have to fill out a long form and then somebody has to call me back and then I'm going to miss the call 3 times, you're going to lose way more patients than you get into that new patient funnel. And then from the orthodontic perspective, you do need a tool to keep track of those leads. What are you using to convert those patients from a lead to a new patient to someone who's accepted services and signed a contract? There are lots of tools out there. And with the Gage team we work with, we use, Gage has a new product they launched last year called Gage Consult Manager that manages this whole process seamlessly to help practices get more yeses. And it's sort of like the Salesforce for orthodontic practices. But you need something like that so that you don't lose track of your OBS patients, because some of your patients, like you mentioned your 9-year-old earlier, they may be in OBS for 2 years before they're ready for braces. So if you have, turnover in your office, or you need to track those leads, how does your current practice management help you track it? And if it doesn't, look at one of the other, systems that does it, because you shouldn't be doing it on a spreadsheet anymore. We shouldn't be doing it in Excel. Those are not HIPAA compliant ways to track this. You need to be in a secure portal. And if somebody leaves and that data goes with them, you could have lost 2 years of a new patient pipeline that you may not be able to get back. So you have to think about how these things impact your business processes, your workflow, and then how it helps you, like I said in the beginning, save money or make more money, and then provide those better patient outcomes. Because if you're tracking your OBS patients for 2 years, they're going to appreciate those drip follow-up campaigns that the marketing teams help you do. They're going to appreciate being reminded it's time to come in and see it. Is my child ready for braces yet? And especially those more complicated cases where you might have expanders or thumb sucking appliances or, different things that you have to do prior to even starting orthodontic treatment. Keeping track of those things can be critical in terms of developing that patient relationship and keeping those patients engaged while you're waiting for them to get started.
Wow, April, you've given us so much to digest and to think about. But, in my introduction, I promised the listeners that I would provide them with some key questions that you might recommend that they ask their vendors to help them in their decision-making process. So if you wouldn't mind, would you outline a few for our listeners that they could jot down and utilize in terms of making a good decision on their practice software?
Definitely. And I will say that we love in the product world, we love early adopters. So we appreciate Dr. Leon's willingness to be an early adopter and try new things. A couple of them we already talked about. How easy is it to get your data? What does that look like, whether it's analytics built in and reporting or whether they're going to provide you with your data? So that's always important. And then the second piece today that you need to take a look at is the security protocols in terms of, PHI, cyber attacks. Are we looking at cloud-based versus on-premise? On-premise software is going to have a different set of security concerns. A lot of the times these days, with the advancements in the cloud, you're going to be much more protected in the cloud. On-premise is going to require additional local expense to drive that protection. So what does your local area network look like? Do you have an on-site IT person, or are you going to have to pay a contractor to manage that for you? You're going to have to do your own backups and things of that nature. So it's much more involved to use on-premise than the cloud these days. And the cloud tends to be much more secure because typically your weakness is in that local network. Somebody sharing email passwords or disgruntled, staff members. And then what features are built in versus what you got to go to a third party for. That's important because you may think one practice management system is less expensive than another, but when you start really looking at what is included in that base price versus what are add-ons, those prices can change very, very quickly. So I always encourage practices to understand down to the minute detail what is included in your pricing and what you'd have to go to a third party for, and then how much more does that add to the system. And then I think in terms of your tech stack itself, how is it built? Does it work with multiple browsers if it's cloud-based? Do you have to be on a Mac only, or can you be on a PC? Does it work on my tablets? Because a lot of times the orthodontists, especially when they're going from chair to chair, it's easier for them if they can just chart from a tablet and be able to move about their day. And how is it going to impact their workflow if they have to be stuck to a PC to get there? And then what about my internal champion? So we talked about the fact that you want to know what needs it's going to fill, what you're looking for feature-wise. But then the thing I think practices forget about the most is we need engagement and we need utilization of the new system. So who's the internal champion for your practice for this new product or service? It can't always be about the orthodontist or the doctor themselves. If it's a patient engagement system, who's going to champion that versus it might be different if it's a clinical based system. And if it's the whole thing, then everybody has to own their part. But you need that internal champion to really help drive the change management, and then have a plan. So you need a project plan, you need an implementation plan. Even if it's a small change or you think it's not going to impact your workflow, you still need to understand that and have a plan with your internal team, work with your partner that you've chosen, and they should be able to guide you in that process. So it should be as least painful as possible. And then understand what data gets migrated. If you are changing practice management systems, there are some decisions that need to be made around that data migration. And are you going to reload your fee schedules from scratch? Because maybe they were put in 10 years ago and we're not 100% sure they're accurate anymore. So this is a good time to clean up those records and, start your new processes with clean data, with best practices, with an identified workflow, with your champions in place. And those transitions will go much more smoothly than in times past.
Yep. Super on point. I hear these stories from clients all the time when they're making changes. We can't talk for another couple of weeks because we're going through a big change and trying to get team on board, which is a point you made. That's, I think, like anecdotally an outsized challenge in the whole list, is making sure that we have champions and everybody is on the same page about why this is going to be beneficial to the practice and how this is going to benefit the patient. But anyway, those were a great list of questions.
One more thing, if I could, I mentioned, April, you just gave me post-traumatic stress when you mentioned data migration, because I went through a number of upgrades in my software, and I have never come across, a system that migrated every field, for a variety of different reasons. Some of it, I'm sure, not the fault of the software company, but that is like a pain.
It can be a challenge. And the truth is, in the orthodontic and dental world especially, we have some systems that have just come out the last few years, and we have others that have been around for 30 years. And so those are all built on different technologies, different stacks, different protocols, different database designs. So it's not always apples to apples like you might think it is. We've been very lucky that we've built some very specific automated processes to help people migrate off of other practice management systems to our systems, because we know that that's probably one of the biggest objections in the process. So we want to make it as easy as possible and to get as much data as possible. But that's always a key call out to make sure. And the truth is, all those problems can be solved. But it's just good. It's just good to get that data and information up front so that you're 100% certain. Are we migrating claims in process? Are we migrating our auto payment plans that still have 12 payments left? And what does that look like? Does it mean I have to go collect new credit card data again for my 200 patients that are still on an auto payment plan? Or can that data be transferred over? So there are very specific questions that each of your department leaders or managers, whether it's a patient side or financial side, need to look at and be involved in that process. But there are solutions for all of that. I think our team's done a really good job of trying to make it as painless as possible across our practice management systems. But it is something that, from a question perspective, as you're evaluating those systems, I always encourage practices to ask and check into, because you're right, it does give, PTSD is probably a good call out. We've all had a less than positive experience with data migration, I think, if you've been in this industry for any length of time. But the better tools that are available today to do that, I think, do make it a little less painful than it's been in times past.
So my last question before we wrap up is about looking forward. What should we be looking out for with regard to practice technology in the future? We have AI that's being used in all sorts of elements of dentistry and beyond. But so what's on the horizon in terms of practice technology?
I think AI is here to play and here to stay. We're going to continue to see more and more of that. The initial, kind of entry into the dental and orthodontic world with AI has come in the form of AI imaging. We have partnered with Pearl AI for a couple of our platforms in that in mind, and have it built into our imaging suite of software. I think that will continue to be a growing space as that continues to evolve and mature. I also think we're going to start seeing more and more AI around scheduling and around clinical notes, to the degree that we still give the doctors the full autonomy, but to the degree to make it a little simpler to capture some of that data in real time when they're not, it's difficult to type when you got your hands in someone's mouth. And so we want to try to look at those entries into the AI world that are going to continue to pop up. So we're going to see more and more AI impacting our ability to treat patients, to provide better outcomes, maybe to look and catch things that we might be missing, or to also just make our lives easier because it's part of our technology platform. AI is a big focus for our product organization, and how we're using it across our different brands, and how that will impact our customers in the coming months and years. But I do believe that it's part of an initiative that's here to stay, and that we will continue to see impacts to that as we move forward, and as additional features and product sets become available, and that technology itself evolves.
Well, April, thank you. Really appreciate your insight today. I'm sure our listeners will gain a lot from this particular episode of The Golden Age. If we get some questions, where can we find you to ask you these questions?
Sure. So I can be reached at PracticeTek. My email is like april.lowry@practicetech.com, and that's PracticeTek with a K, PracticeTek. You'll also be hearing more about Orthodontic in the coming weeks. So this is our new cloud-based multi-specialty platform that is truly designed for a full orthodontic practice, a multi-specialty practice where the pediatric and ortho doctors in the same office, a DSO where they want to do all of the above, plus oral surgery and then some. So we set out to pull in together the best of practice and that all-in-one concept that Dr. Leon mentioned earlier, because we recognized that it didn't really exist. And so we're super excited about the launch of that platform in June. And so there'll be much more detail and information about that. And I'm also on LinkedIn and available via phone to answer questions as well.
Well, thank you again for joining us. We really appreciate it. We will be following up with you and hope you'll join us again to give us some updates. And again, thanks for joining us for this conversation today. We learned a lot.
No, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure to speak with you guys, and I'm always happy to help and share information and empower others through technology to make better decisions. And it's a passion of mine, and one that I'm very involved in. So I appreciate the opportunity to share with you guys today.
Thanks, April.
You can subscribe or download other episodes of the Golden Age of Orthodontics on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you enjoyed today's episode, which I am sure you did, we'd appreciate you telling a colleague. For more information about people in practice, you can visit our website at pplpractice.com. And if you want to, you can even chat live with Leon, just a little chat bot. He's on the other end, pops up right on his phone. So if you want to ask him any questions, feel free to do that.
Yeah, you could reach me that way. You could reach me by email at leon@pplpractice.com. If your numbers are flat, if you're interested in upgrading your marketing, People in Practice is a full-service marketing company. We will help you and reach out. You could reach out to me directly in any of the ways mentioned before. It's never been a better time to be an orthodontist. We are in the golden age, so take advantage of it. Until next time, see ya.
Thank you for tuning in to the Golden Age of Orthodontics. Subscribe now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or visit our website at thegoldenageoforthodontics.com for direct links to both the audio and video versions of this episode.